All right, let's get started. Today we're doing a deep dive into something pretty significant, especially if you're involved in business anywhere in the world. We're talking about the UK Bribery Act 2010. We've looked at some really good sources, mainly excerpts from an article breaking it down, and our goal here is to pull out the key stuff for you. What does this act actually mean for people, for companies? Why is it still so important now?
Yeah, it's fascinating because this wasn't just like a minor update. It completely threw out the old UK bribery laws. It was really designed to take a much tougher line on bribery and corruption. And, if you think about the bigger picture, bribery really messes things up. It undermines good governance, the rule of law, and it can seriously harm economic development. Plus, and this is really important right from the start, it has extraterritorial application.
Ah, right. Meaning it reaches beyond the UK's borders.
Exactly. So even if the bribe happens, say, in South America or Asia, if a UK company is involved, or even a foreign company that does significant business in the UK, this act can bite.
That's a huge reach. And our sources, they really point to who's on the ground dealing with this day to day. They make it clear that accountants, finance professionals, compliance teams, they're absolutely central. They're the ones assessing the risks, putting the right procedures in place. So yeah, if you're in business, especially internationally, this is definitely for you.
Okay, so let's unpack the act itself. It got royal assent back in April 2010, became examinable, I think, from June 2012.
That's right. And its main goal really is twofold: tackle bribery head on, and by doing that, help create a level playing field, free and fair competition. Like I said, it replaced laws that were, pretty outdated and widely seen as not really fit for purpose anymore. And just to hammer home that point about reach, all the offenses under this act can apply internationally. Where the act happens doesn't necessarily let you off the hook.
Got it. So what are these offenses? I understand there are 4 main ones laid out in the act. Yeah, 4 specific types of behavior that are outlawed. Let's run through them. First up, Section 1. Offenses of bribing another person. This is pretty straightforward. It's about offering or giving some kind of advantage. Could be cash, could be a gift, a contract, whatever, to someone else. The key is the intent. You're doing it to get them to perform a function or activity improperly, or maybe rewarding them because they already did something improperly.
Okay, so that's the active part.
Exactly. Then you've got Section 2, offenses relating to being bribed. This is the other side of the coin. It's an offense for someone to request, agree to receive, or actually accept an advantage, again, linked to performing their function improperly.
So the person taking the bribe.
Precisely. And that phrase, relevant function or activity, it's defined really broadly. It covers public functions, obviously, but also anything related to business, employment, or activities done for any kind of organization. And remember, this can be anywhere in the world, not just the UK. It doesn't have to be a government official either.
Yeah.
Then there's Section 6, bribery of foreign public officials, or FPOs. This is a specific offense targeting bribes paid to officials outside the UK. So offering an advantage directly, or maybe through an intermediary, to influence that foreign official in their official role. The goal: to get or keep business or gain some kind of business advantage. An FPO is also broad. Think legislators, administrators, judges, anyone doing a public job outside the UK, even officials in international organizations.
Okay, so that's specifically targeting international corruption involving officials.
Correct. And finally, the one that really shook things up, Section 7, failure of commercial organizations to prevent bribery. This was a big deal. It basically says a company or partnership based in or operating in the UK commits an offense if someone associated with it bribes someone else. The intention has to be to get or keep business or an advantage for the organization.
An associated person could be who? An employee.
An employee, yes, but also an agent, a subsidiary, anyone performing services for or on behalf of the organization. It's a wide net. And again, this applies even if the bribery takes place completely outside the UK.
Right. Here's where it gets really interesting, I think. That Section 7, wow. It feels like it completely changes the game for corporate responsibility, doesn't it? It's not just about punishing the individual anymore. The company's on the hook, even if the bosses didn't explicitly know the bribe was happening.
That's absolutely the core of it. It introduced a form of, almost strict liability for the organization. It puts the burden squarely on the company to be proactive, to have systems in place to stop bribery happening in its name. It means compliance has to be, embedded in the culture, not just a policy document sitting on a shelf.
So if Section 7 casts such a wide net, how does a company defend itself? Is there a way out?
Yes, there is, and it's crucial. The Act provides a specific defense under Section 7. An organization can avoid conviction if it can prove it had adequate procedures in place designed to prevent associated persons from committing bribery.
Adequate procedures. Okay. And wasn't there official guidance issued on what that actually means?
There was, yeah. The government published guidance back in March 2011. But the guidance makes it clear there's no one-size-fits-all solution. What's adequate depends entirely on the risks the specific organization faces. Things like its size, the complexity of its business, where it operates, the sector it's in. It even says, logically, if an organization faces literally zero risk of bribery, well, then maybe no procedures are needed, though that's probably rare in practice. The guidance itself isn't a strict rule book. It's built around 6 key principles.
Okay.
But, and this is vital, the ultimate decision on whether the procedures were adequate rests with the courts. And the burden of proof, the onus, is on the organization to demonstrate it. That's a high bar.
It's probably worth mentioning, too, something that often comes up. The Act doesn't ban normal business hospitality, right? Like taking a client to dinner.
No, absolutely not. The guidance explicitly states that genuine hospitality, things that are reasonable and proportionate in the context of doing business, are not prohibited. The focus is on the intent behind the advantage offered. Is it intended to improperly influence someone? That's the key question, not whether you bought someone lunch.
Good clarification. Okay, so the 6 guiding principles for adequate procedures, what are they? They sound like the practical roadmap.
They really are. They provide the framework. Let's tick through them. First, proportionate procedures. Like we said, measures should match the risks. A small local company needs different procedures than a massive multinational. Makes sense.
Yeah, tailored to the situation.
Second, top-level commitment. This is huge. Management, the board, they have to genuinely commit to preventing bribery. They need to foster an anti-bribery culture right from the top down. Set the tone.
Lead by example.
Exactly. Third, risk assessment. Organizations need to actually figure out where their risks lie. Are they operating in high-risk countries? High-risk sectors, maybe like construction or energy. What about internal risks? They need to identify and assess them.
So know your vulnerabilities.
Precisely. Fourth, due diligence. This is about checking who you're doing business with, essentially, especially those associated persons, agents, intermediaries, partners. You need procedures to understand the risks they might bring and mitigate them.
Okay, do your homework on partners.
Fifth, communication. Policies aren't much good if nobody knows about them or understands them, so organizations need to communicate their anti-bribery stance internally and externally. This includes training for staff, proportionate to the risks they face, make sure everyone gets it.
Embed it, basically.
Yeah. And finally, sixth, monitoring and review. This isn't a one-and-done thing. Risks change. Businesses evolve. So you need to regularly monitor how well your procedures are working, review them, and update them as needed. Keep them effective.
Right, an ongoing cycle. So putting it all together, what this means for you listening, your company, is that these 6 principles, that's your defense plan for Section 7. It's about building this proactive, ethical framework, not just reacting when something goes wrong.
Correct.
Quite a shift. Okay, let's talk consequences. If someone or a company falls foul of this act, what are the penalties? What's the damage?
Well, they're pretty severe, as you'd expect. For individuals, conviction can lead to up to 10 years in prison. That's a significant custodial sentence. And remember, that was increased from 7 years under the old laws. For organizations, the penalty is an unlimited fine. There's no upper cap.
Unlimited, wow.
Yeah. But honestly, the fines, while potentially massive, might not even be the worst part. You have to consider the further damage. The big one is reputation. A bribery scandal can absolutely destroy public trust, investor confidence, customer loyalty.
Yeah, that kind of damage can be incredibly hard to repair.
It really can. It can impact share price, make it hard to win contracts, difficult to attract good employees. It can be devastating long term. And on top of that, there's also the possibility of civil lawsuits against the company or even against individual directors personally for failing to have those adequate procedures in place.
So multiple layers of potential pain.
Definitely. It's designed to have real teeth.
Okay, so wrapping this up, our deep dive really shows the UK Bribery Act 2010 was and still is a major force. It completely reshaped the landscape for fighting corruption. It junked the old laws, brought in this much stronger framework, especially with that Section 7 offense making companies responsible. But it also provided that defense pathway, the adequate procedures.
It did, which,
Mhm.
leads to a really interesting closing thought, I think. Given that huge global reach of the act and the need for these adequate procedures that have to be constantly monitored and adapted, how do businesses, especially the big multinationals operating everywhere, actually keep evolving their internal culture, their systems, so that they're not just complying on paper, but genuinely making bribery unthinkable within their walls? And maybe more broadly, what does this constant pressure mean for the role of people in finance and compliance? How is their job changing in this ongoing fight?